Perhaps we should love ourselves so fiercely, when others see us, they know exactly how it should be done. That is a quote from probably my favorite poet, Rudy Francisco. And I'm going to put a link to his website in my show notes because he's really fantastic. I actually saw him live for the first time last September, and I was amazed. Somehow, remarkably, I was able to get a front row seat, and he's just incredible. I love his words because they spark justice, they spark truth, and he holds them so powerfully when you see him live. So I think he's on tour right now, and I can't express enough how much you should go see him if he's going to be near you. And you'll be able to find his tour information from his website. So I'll put that in the show notes, but he's fantastic. And I have that quote, which I'll read one more time, up in my house because it's the core of what the message is today. And the message today is to reflect on ways that I have learned to love myself because it's my birthday on Tuesday, June 9th. And so I wanted to kind of honor myself and what I've learned. But my hope is that what I have learned will help you too. Help you learn to love yourself fiercely. So again, that quote, perhaps we should love ourselves so fiercely when others see us, they know exactly how it should be done. And again, that's Rudy Francisco. You can actually order that poster for yourself and he signs it for you too. So that's kind of cool. All of that you can find on his website. I love that word, fierce. It's such a powerful word, fierce. I love to use it in my writing. To be fierce, to be ferocious, is to come into our power. And that is what this year has been about for me. And it's been very quiet, very subterranean, to use a word that Chani Nicholas has been using a lot on her podcast, beneath the earth. This past year for me has been about connecting with my own ferocity again, to be fierce. And to love ourselves fiercely is to be brave enough to endure the growth that reminds us of our own divinity. So I'm going to say that again. That one's mine. To get to know our own ferocity, to be fierce, is to be brave enough to endure the growth that connects us with our own divinity. That's what this year has been about for me. And although my birthday is officially on Tuesday, June 9th, I wanted to release this on Monday, June 8th, because the number 8 has been really significant for me this year. Numerology is a whole other study of spirituality, one that I've barely just scratched the surface of, but I can't help but notice how numbers have been appearing in my dreams and around me, and the number 8 in particular has been big. It has appeared in a couple of my dreams. It is associated with the bald eagle, which is a spiritual animal totem that has come to me. And it's also the number of my family. There are 8 members of my family. And I know that this is a big number for me. So I thought June 8th would be appropriate. The other reason I'm releasing this episode on the 8th is because this is a big week, astrologically speaking. And it kind of begins on the 8th. Now, this information about the astrology of this week is what I learned from Chani on her app. So please know that what I'm about to share with you is information that I got from her, but also just kind of mixed with my own thoughts, right? My own analysis of it. And I can't encourage you enough to go and listen to her Week Ahead podcast. You can listen to it for free on her app, but I'm pretty sure it's on like iHeartRadio and all that too. You should listen to it for this week. She just released it today. I'm recording this on Sunday, releasing it on the 8th, but she released it on Sunday, and it kind of goes over why this is such a big week, and she gives you some tips for what to reflect on in order to work with the astrology of the week. But I can't help but notice that this big astrology is happening on the week of my birthday and near the closing of my nodal return. And if you need to know what that means, just, listen to recent episodes. I talk all about the nodes, or you can go to Chani's website or app and learn about what the nodes mean and what a nodal return means. But one of the big events of this week, and actually of the year, is happening on Tuesday, June 9th, my birthday. And it is the planet Venus and the planet Jupiter coming together. And this is one of the luckiest events in astrology. It's one of the luckiest days of the year. It's very, very good energy to work with. It's sweet, it's about attracting abundance and reflecting on the gifts that we've been given. So if you want to know more about that, listen to Channy, but I'm going to talk about what I have learned about Jupiter's activity over the last year or so and how it's impacted my life. Jupiter has been in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is the nurturer. It's the sensitive one. It's caring. So the sign of Cancer is all about what we nurture, what we take care of, what we're sensitive to. It's a very caring, huggy kind of sign. And when Jupiter's in Cancer, it's in its exaltation, meaning it's a very, very good sign. It helps Jupiter kind of function at its most powerful and effective. And for me, this falls in my 8th house. Okay, there's that number 8 again, right? I think it's another reason 8 has been appearing to me is because so many big things have been going on in my 8th house. And the 8th house is the house that represents death, mental health, and other people's resources. So a lot of hidden things, subterranean things, beneath the surface things. And this past year, while Jupiter's been in Cancer, because I think it moved into Cancer actually on my birthday last year, this year has been all about hidden things. It's been about the self-love that I have been developing in the dark. And when it comes to other people's resources, a couple things have been going on with that. This is the first time in years that I've been dependent on someone else's income entirely, which is a big step for me. As a single parent, as someone who had to rebuild after the loss of a home and a divorce and a job that just wasn't paying me what the cost of my education to get that job was. Unfortunately, there's too many systems that function in that way. I wasn't dependent on anybody else for a long time, and it felt scary. But this past year, with resigning from my job, has required me to be dependent on my husband's income entirely. Of course, his income has always been a huge part of my life, right, in our home. But this is the first time I've had to rely entirely on someone else's money. Now, it is our money, you know what I mean, together, but you know what I mean, right? It was an act of trust. It was an act of care for me to rely on that. And so that's one lesson that I've been learning over the last year while Jupiter's been in Cancer, is that I can rely on people again. And that requires bravery and growth too. A huge part of self-love is being willing to try again. Not with the same toxic person, but if you've experienced loss or heartbreak, it can be terrifying to step into a position where you trust someone again. You have to let go of some of the survival tactics you've developed, but it is an act of self-love. When you are safe enough to move out of survival mode, it is an act of self-love to take that first step into trusting someone. It's an act of self-love to allow your body to create new patterns, even if it's uncomfortable. The gift that I've been given by relying on this 8th house, other people's resources, is the ability to trust again, to know that, okay, maybe this path didn't work out and I wasn't taken care of, but I am here. A huge part of self-love is opening up to other people's resources again. And on that note of other people's resources, I should say I should have said this earlier, part of the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, right, coming together on my birthday, it's what makes it so lucky is the energy of the two planets. But part of how we kind of invite this energy in is to reflect also on the abundance that we've been given, and to call in the abundance that we hope for, because Jupiter is the planet of abundance. To quote Channy, it expands whatever it touches. So where Jupiter is, that area of your life is going to be expanded. And I should have said that earlier. So what I'm reflecting on now is how Jupiter has been expanding the hidden things of my life, the resources that come from other people, the death. I can't help but notice that while Jupiter's been in Cancer, I've released a lot of stories that kind of deconstruct and flip the meaning of death. I absolutely do that in my Hermione story, which I released while Jupiter was in my 8th house. Flipping the concept of what death means, mental health. This act of self-love has been a complete rewiring of how my brain works. So a huge act of self-love is allowing yourself to change, trusting that you can change your patterns. And for me, what that's meant is moving out of survival mode. Even though there's a lot of uncertain things in my life and I've had scary moments, I've had emotional moments, I don't live in survival mode anymore. I've allowed my brain to shift out of survival mode, to shift out of unhealthy coping mechanisms of distraction. And that's a big one that I've talked about, especially in the wrong hands, in the wrong home episode. Distraction. Allowing yourself to stop whatever you're doing to numb and distract and allow yourself to go through the discomfort of growth so you can come into your own power. That's been a huge part of what Jupiter in Cancer has meant for me. That is part of the abundance that I've developed, is just learning to rely on others again, but also learning to rely on hidden things. Because part of the 8th house is hidden things. Some spiritual things. The 12th house gets into that too, but there's some spirituality in the 8th house. And this last year and a half has been huge for relying on spirit, for coming to recognize that spirits are alive in this world. William Bloom's work taught me that a lot, that there are forces of light. Unfortunately, there's a lot of attention grabbing things out there about haunted places, ghosts, creepy, bad energy. I think that sort of glamorizing these things, haunted places, ghosts, although it's fascinating, I think it sort of turns the spiritual into McDonald's a little bit of like, ooh, what's this, negative bad thing that I can just consume really quick for the dopamine hit and then move on. There is so much more to the spiritual world than just haunted places. And quite frankly, I'm not trying to go to haunted places. I don't want to take that energy with me. There's angels. There's the Fey realm. There's spirits of life helping things grow and renew and restore. And I believe this has been a huge lesson of this last year, that it is our responsibility to work with them. Just like we work with astrology and the planets, just like we work with that energy, it is our job to work with the spirits that are here on earth, to restore, to replenish, to heal, to build, to make. That's been an 8th house lesson that I've learned as I've been hidden. Because I have kind of been hidden, to tell you the truth. I know that those of you who listen to me have gotten to know me pretty well, but I've actually been pretty hidden from my local community. Nobody really knows what I do, besides working with taking care of my kids. Like ever since I quit my job, not a lot of people in my community, meaning people I used to work with, meaning my extended family, meaning my neighbors, people don't really know what I do. They're not really familiar with my work on this podcast and with my writing. Most of the people, bless you, by the way, thank you, who listen to me are not from my community. They're from somewhere else. So I have been a little bit hidden from those who are around me. They don't really know what I do. There's a lot of my spiritual work that's hidden from my community because, quite frankly, it's also not really the right place, It's not the right place to channel some of it. So I have been hidden over the last year, but I have experienced an abundance of love from the spirits. I've seen things in my home. I've seen the ways that the spirits are helping to take care of my family and I have come to know beautiful guardians and angels in my dreams. I've come to know that my spirit is much more powerful than I previously imagined. I have spent this last year in my 8th house, flexing my muscles, building my muscles in my dream, healing my relationship with my mind. Because how many of us have become detached from our mind? We think that our brain and body and spirit are betraying us. And so we numb it. The things that we feel are too scary and too painful, and the anxiety that we undergo is just jabbing at us. That's not how we're meant to live. Our body and mind is trying to protect us. And so a huge part of self-love is learning to work with ourselves. We have been conditioned, we have been taught to go outside of ourselves for fulfillment. That is capitalism. That is consumerism. Everything out there is grabbing at your attention. They want to teach you these ads that we're constantly bombarded with. Even click culture is grabbing at our attention because it's teaching us that we're not enough, that we have to go outside of ourselves to find happiness, to find satisfaction, that what we have in our own body and our own mind isn't enough. Kind of the irony, the beautiful irony of working with this 8th house magic over the last year is that the spirits I've worked with, working with my own soul, studying things in the quiet has taught me that although we need to rely on each other for help and for connection, in and of ourselves, we are also divine lights. I've spent time alone where I haven't really talked to anybody, but I've come to love my own heart. My own thoughts have become gifts for me, because that's part of the 8th house too. It's these hidden resources that I didn't know were there. So a huge act of self-love is breaking away from that habit that's been distracting you. Maybe something you can do to love yourself on this blessed Venus-Jupiter day on the 9th, but really the 8th, 9th, and 10th are all really lucky days. So maybe a good act of self-love, of abundance that you can give yourself is to cut yourself off from the negative abundance of distractions and dopamine hits. Maybe you delete one of your social media. Maybe you delete your TikTok. And instead, you use the time that you would have used scrolling to write down a couple sentences about how you're feeling, to write down that dream you had that you keep remembering, to remember what you like again, not just what you like because someone told you you should or because you need to distract yourself. In my previous episode, I talked about how the thing that's been kind of trying to get your attention that you've been dreaming of, whether it's, or just been wanting to do, whether it's a dance class, an art project, a relative you need to talk to, that's probably a seed. The things that we're called to, the things that are creative, whether it's the people we're called to love, the dance we're called to dance to, the painting we're called to create, it is representative of something bigger, of something divine. It's a seed. And you will find that once you start tending to that seed, it will grow into something that helps you love yourself more powerfully and something that can help you teach others. I promise it will. Our art, our calling is how we connect again with our own divinity and how we can help others connect with theirs. That thing that's been calling you is a seed. This past year, I have experienced an abundance of seeds. I have come to know my own gifts again. In this house of hidden things, I've been able to nurture my own mind again. Just by paying attention to my dreams, I realized that there's a spirit in there, that my soul might be more ancient than I ever could have imagined before. In some of my dreams, I'm making up languages. And I know because I did the research for some of these words that have come to me in my dreams, and they don't exist anywhere that I can find. So where the hell did that come from? An ancient spirit is where that came from. And I'm telling you about it because you deserve the opportunity to connect with yours again, to remember who you are. Maybe for you, that means looking at your dreams as well. Maybe it means you start dancing, see what insights come to you. Because another thing that I've learned is that when you are engaging in a creative act or you're opening, whether you're listening to a podcast that actually has some heart and spirit to it, or you're painting, or you're exercising, or you're dancing, or you're having a conversation with someone who you genuinely connect with and you're in a flow state where you're not gossiping about people, but you're genuinely connecting heart to heart, it opens your mind to other spiritual and creative things. So maybe your act of self-love is stepping into that connection. Whether you're connecting with your body through dance, you're connecting with that relative who you know loves you and who you know you need to build a bigger relationship with, or you're connecting with that painting you need to make, or that business you need to start. That's self-love. Stepping away from our distractions and toward our calling is self-love. And you don't have to figure it out in a day. It's okay to be uncertain for a while. Often that's the biggest part of growth. And so, to summarize this self-love piece and kind of call in the magic of this Venus-Jupiter conjunction, where we reflect on the sweetness, we reflect on the abundance that we've been given by Jupiter in Cancer. And I encourage you to, again, download Cheney's app, look at your chart, see, Jupiter's been in Cancer. So see where Cancer falls, see where that house falls in your chart and what Jupiter might have been touching for you. See, where this Venus-Jupiter conjunction, where they come together, see where it happens in your chart too. What part of your life might it be touching? What part of your life is Jupiter trying to expand and Venus trying to bless? It's a day of sweetness. It's a day of gifts. It's a day of abundance. I encourage you to check that out. But for me, what this abundance has been in my 8th house is the abundance of my own mind, the abundance of hidden things, the abundance of trust, the abundance of the spirits, reconnecting with that. So self-love is stepping away from our distractions and toward healing our own mind, toward our calling. And I want to wrap up this episode because I just know there's somebody out there who needs to hear this. And it's one of my favorite things that I've ever created. And part of this episode is in honor of my birthday. And so I want to read another excerpt or another section of my story, Hermione, that I wrote. And I read part of it before in my A Good Story episode, but I can't encourage you enough to read this story because I know that it is very powerfully charged with magic. I wrote it just before the year 2025 ended. So it was released shortly before 2026 began. And I know that there's something inside this story that the year 2026 means, but I also want to read it in honor of how Jupiter has blessed me in this house of hidden things. And the beauty of hidden things is that they're not hidden forever. What's done in private always comes out into the public. And so think of your hidden things, the growth that you do in the darkness. Think of it coming into the light, right? That's what happens when babies are born. They grow in darkness, right? They grow in the darkness of the womb, but then a whole new life is created. I talked about this in a negative sense with the whole, Trump bragging about sexually assaulting women in private. Well, that nature is seen in public. So for better or worse, my friends, what happens in our house of hidden things, what happens in private, always comes out into the public in one form of another. So on this blessed, few days of Venus and Jupiter meeting up, I encourage you to engage in growth. Attract an abundance of growth and new life and seeds rather than distractions and numbness. In this scene of Hermione that I'm going to read you, it's all about how Hermione has brought hidden things to life again. It's about reconnecting with the spirits. And so I want to honor the greatest gift that I have experienced while Jupiter has been in Cancer, and while I broke it, the greatest gift that I've experienced from breaking away from the busyness, from the toxic places where I didn't belong, from being on my own, was connecting with spirits, my own and the good spirit around me. And the heart of that is in this story. The scene that I'm reading is where George sees his brother Fred. If you remember the Harry Potter series, Fred is murdered at the end. In the big battle with Voldemort, Fred dies. And so this scene is way far in the future where Hermione is an adult in her 40s and she's working with the Deathly Hallows. She has the Resurrection Stone as a ring on her finger. And she brings Fred back. She brings him back in a way where George can see him. And this is the scene that made both my husband and I cry. And so I hope that it touches your heart too and encourages you to go and read the whole story. But here it is, the section of Hermione in honor of my birthday and of Jupiter and of the 8th house, the subterranean things. So, this really is Fred then? George asked. It is his spirit, yes, Death answered. Hermione called him here for her mission, albeit subconsciously. Something she is learning right alongside you now is that her mission as the master of death is to create sustainable, restorative life. And that mission cannot be completed without connection to spirit. So yes, Hermione now has the ability to thin the veil and call spirits into view and communication when something tied to life requires it. George appeared utterly bewildered as he asked, "What exactly does that mean?" Death smiled and gently brushed some of the stray red hair out of George's eyes and answered, "You are meant to speak with your brother, to see him for just a short while before he returns to the other side of the veil. There is a purpose to your meeting." George turned to Fred as thick tears returned to his eyes and a few began to fall. "It's really you, brother?" "Of course," Fred answered. "Has so much time passed that you don't recognize your own twin?" He tried to answer playfully to ease the tension, but George was beyond games for the moment. "I've never forgotten. You've just been so far away. Gone for so long," George said as he lifted his arm to his eyes and wiped a few of the tears. Fred stepped closer, and although he could not touch George, he pressed his ghostly forehead to his brother's and said, "I've been right here." George began to quietly sob as Fred repeated the words, more quietly, yet certainly this time. "Right here, Georgie." "But I couldn't see you. I couldn't hear you." "Yes, you could," Fred answered. "It's why you created all those sodding earworms. You were trying to listen. It was your way of reaching out. In all your grief, you never stopped creating. You held on to the purpose that bonded us more strongly than blood, time, and space. Our inventions, George. You sustained that connection." George sobbed harder. "But I abandoned the bunker, closed down the shop after Ron couldn't help me anymore. The pain was too great, and I felt so ashamed about that." "Life evolves, Georgie," Fred answered. "The shop served its purpose in its time. You moved on to something new, and it's all right. You've done nothing wrong. And I've been right here with you, waiting on the other side of the veil for you. Our connection changed, but it was not lost." Your own divinity is not lost. Who you truly are has been with you. Those who truly love you, both the ones that you've lost and the ones who are still here on earth, are with you. We are not so far from help. We are not so far from our own spirits. We are powerfully connected, and it is not too late for you. You've probably already been noticing the powerful pieces of your spirit, just like George was. He had habits. He had things he was drawn to that were a part of the greater calling that he was being led to. Just because something changes doesn't mean it's too late. I love you all so much. Thank you for joining me for this special birthday episode. And I would ask you to follow me if you haven't yet. Give me that gift for my birthday. I'm just going to say it. Please give me that gift for my birthday. Follow me. Just click that button if you haven't. Share me. Share my podcast. Even if it's just one episode that spoke to you, share it with someone. You know who needs to hear it. If you've read some of my stories, which I know some of you have, number one, thank you. But number two, share them. Pass it around. And on these blessed days of Venus and Jupiter coming together, I wish you all the sweetness and abundance in the world. Happy birthday to me on June 9th. And happy birthday to you whenever your birthday is. And thank you for celebrating by coming.